Steve Bannon, excellent to have you on American Thought Leaders.
Listen, thank you so much for having me.
Steve, so in September, you're going to be releasing Claws of the Red Dragon, a film that's going to expose Huawei, the Chinese telecom giant. Tell me more.
Well, one of the issues about Huawei, it's the technological arm of the PLA. It's a driver in 5G and quantum computing throughout the world. And whether it's Western Europe, Canada, the United States, or Australia, people, particularly citizens, don't really understand what's in back of Huawei. The deception, what's been in this indictment, and it's so the new Tang Dynasty TV was making a pilot for the beginning of a series. I got involved a couple of months ago, and I said, listen, this is exactly what the Canadian people and the American people need to see, which is a drama, not a documentary, that goes in a very dramatic, great acting, great photography, great music, to really allow the citizen to understand what the situation is with Huawei. So I'm very excited. This is a very powerful film. It talks about the arrest of the chief financial officer, who's also the daughter of the founder. I think it opens up and explains in a dramatic form exactly what's going on with China's encroachment into the technology area throughout the world. People will be shocked when they've seen it. We've already tested it with some people. I've tested it here in the United States in Washington, D.C. Yes, I've had a couple of test screenings of the rough about a month ago, tested it with some fairly senior people in the U.S. government, and they were stunned by some of the revelations in the film. And so that's why I told Dr. Joe, about we've really got something I think very powerful here. And what I'd like to do is make a big deal about the opening in Canada. And what I'm doing right now, I'm fielding calls from all throughout the world, Australia, Europe, in the United States, to cut distribution deals so the entire world can see this. I think they're going to be very, very impressed.
That's incredible. And Dr. Joe Wong, of course, the president of NTD Canada, our sister media. I'm going to read something that struck me in the press release, which kind of blew my mind a little bit. I mean, you describe Huawei as the greatest national security threat we have ever faced. That's America. I mean, bigger than nuclear war? This is quite the statement.
No, because here's why. The future of all technology, the backbone of the future of technology is 5G. It will be a dominant technology. Right now, the path that Huawei's taken as a front for the PLA is to basically take over the networks and the components throughout the world. If we allow this to happen, even for a couple more years, Huawei is going to control basically the communication systems of the West, and therefore will be able to control the West. Even as bad as nuclear weapons are, and they're terrible, and even as bad as some of the opponents that we've had has been terrible, that has been fairly localized, the damage that could be done. Right. This is something that could actually, and it can do it in a stealth manner. Remember, we're in 2019, and we're finally having the conversation about Huawei because the CFO was arrested in Canada, within the past year. Up until then, if you go to Europe, you see Huawei in the billboards, you see Huawei in the stores. There's been absolutely no discussion. The elites have let down the citizens of both Canada, the United States, and Western Europe. And now this film is the beginning of the exposure of that. People should watch this film, and they should question everything they see in this film. They should demand that we back this up, and we are going to back this up on our website, and as we go around the country, in Canada and the United States, and talk about it.
Well, I imagine you'll be digging into some Epoch Times reporting, because we detailed the evidence around the links of Huawei and the CCP extensively. It's stunning.
The reason I want to do this interview, I have said for a long time, China's been one of my big focuses. One of the reasons I came into the Trump campaign at Breitbart. For years, we were talking about the threat, I'm not a rising China, the threat of the Chinese Communist Party, and how it was getting more radicalized over time, and how it had hegemonic designs on the world. And it was really the reporting of the Epoch Times that so impressed me. I kind of figured who are the writers of this paper, because you don't really hear much about it, but the reporting is so amazing. And so one of the ways I learned about Huawei was reading the Epoch Times. And of course, we've done additional research,
right.
but I got to tell you, the Epoch Times has led the reporting on so many different verticals in China today, I think, to give you a pretty good picture of the enslavement of the Chinese people. With this thing, they call it a trade war President Trump's in. He's not. This is an economic war that the Chinese Communist Party has visited on the West, the industrial democracies. And what we have today, we have a world system that's half slave and half free. Okay? The slaves, they've enslaved the workers of China. Okay? And they have taken basically all the value away from them. They give them de minimis wages, no health care, terrible environmental conditions, no pensions, or virtually no pensions, and they're worked to death and to make cheaper goods for the West at slave wages. And that's what this whole battle is about. The defining event, I believe, in the first half of the 21st century is the freedom of the Chinese people. Only the Chinese people can free the Chinese people. It can't come from the Westerners. It can't come from outsiders. What we can do is, I think what President Trump's doing, is put the spotlight on people like Xi, put the spotlight on Wang Qishan, put the spotlight on the Stability Force, put the spotlight on what they do to the Uyghurs, on what they do to the Falun Gong, what they do to the underground Christian church, the underground Catholic church, the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan Buddhist, and all the decent kids in Hong Kong. You see the mask ripped off them. When you see the tear gas, you see the beatings, you see the rubber bullets, you see exactly what they are. This is a gangster organization that doesn't believe in any individual rights. Donald Trump, the central reason he's president of the United States is this. He said, we have to return America to her former greatness. We have to make America great again. And the way we're going to do that, we're going to confront the Chinese Communist Party about Wall Street has shipped those jobs over there, and I am going to bring them back. And today, you saw in this confrontation is exactly what it is. This is the fulfillment of his basic campaign promise. He told the little guy, you haven't, not in the room, not in the deal. You have not been in the room for 25 or 30 years. You're now in the room and I'm your voice. And that has been the sea change. And that's what Xi and Wang Qishan, they don't know how to handle this. People, the party of Davos always say how sophisticated they are, how nuanced they are, how smart they are. Trump's, this barbarian. If you look at the way they've handled the trade relationships with Trump, if you look at the way they've handled Hong Kong, this is not a subtle group. They have people that have to kind of react to their aggression, and if they don't act and stand up, Trump being one and the kids in the street in Hong Kong being the other, they don't know how to do it. All of a sudden they panic and you see these herky-jerky moves. That's why I think you're seeing now a confrontation with a totalitarian dictatorship that does not know how to handle the freedom and free men and women in the West, whether that's in Canada or whether it's on the streets of Hong Kong, and that's why they're going to collapse. I think the people of Hong Kong, people always trash the millennials as they're lazy, they're unfocused, they want everything handed to them. I say, hey, look at the millennials in Hong Kong. Those young men and women are exactly what the patriots of 1776 were in the United States. Okay. They have the grit, they have the determination, they have the indefatigability. They are not going to back down. They've been tear gassed, they've been beaten, they've had rubber bullets shot at them, and time again they show up. I think they're heroes of the modern world. I think they deserve to be nominated for and win the Nobel Prize for Peace, because they have shown what free men and women will do to stand up against a totalitarian dictatorship. And they are a lesson, not just for this age, but for all ages. And that's why I think it's so remarkable what's going on. We are seeing history made in real time. And what's going on in Hong Kong every day is making history. And yes, the CCP eventually, I think, is going to say, hey, we've had enough of this, right? This is like Tiananmen. We've done it long enough, but you're not going to go back to work. You're not going to play by our rules. We're the Chinese Communist Party, and we can break you, and we will break you. And I have said, the moment they force the Chinese Communist Party to do that, the moment they force them for another Tiananmen, that's the beginning of the end of the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese Communist Party, I don't think, can sustain in the modern world another Tiananmen.
Why? Because they will no longer have the perception of a moral authority?
Yes, I think the world, I think they start to get shut off in the world in technology. I think they get shut off in the world in capital markets. And most importantly, I think even with the firewall, the contagion of freedom will start to spread in China. And I think people will realize if they're prepared to do that there, they're going to come and do it here. And I think the people in China are going to stand up. The only people that can free the Chinese people are the Chinese people. And I think the Chinese people are going to come to a situation where they said, we've had enough of this. We've had enough of 100,000 people or 50,000 people, ruling a country of 1.4 billion and stealing all our money, stealing all our wealth, taking it for themselves, making us live in a totalitarian surveillance state, a police state, and in some cases concentration camps, to have live organ harvesting, to be able to suppress the great religions of the world of people that just want to practice their faith and practice their religions. I think people in mainland China are going to look to Hong Kong as an example and say, no, we're prepared to do what they do. I think if the Chinese Communist Party thinks that they can get away with another Tiananmen in the modern world, I think they're going to come in for a big shock.
Steve Bannon, it's such a pleasure to have you on American Thought Leaders.
Thank you so much. Love the show. Glad to be on.